Hey, everybody, welcome back to Jersey First TV and the Nader narrative. This is a tough story that we have to tell today, but really important. So many people have been affected by drug abuse and overdoses and suicide, mental health issues. It's really becoming, sadly, more common than not that we know of either people in our family or very close friends who have suffered at the hands of all of these really scary things that are plaguing our society. There are answers though. And when we look at someone who's gone through a great loss and we see them starting to turn that into something to help others, it's truly the story of the human experience. And that's what we need to talk about. We need to celebrate. We need to understand because we're really not that much different than each other. We all go through pain. We all go through loss, but it's what we do with it that counts. So in today's scenario and society and statistics and all that we know we're facing, we need to look for the bright lights and we need to understand that change is possible. What can we do to address this ever growing addiction rate with younger and younger children? What do we do to address the fentanyl now that has killed so many Americans every single day? What do we do about mental health issues? There are so many things in front of us, and yet there are solutions. And as Americans, we are generally positive people. It's our nature to not just focus on the problem, but look for the solution. So as a community, we need to do that. And today's story is about the loss of a young man and really the building up of an incredible father who intends to do just that, turn his loss into something that will help others and change our community going forward. So I want to bring to the show Tommy Hudanish, who is such a great guy. Tommy, I'm so thrilled to have you on.
I'm so humbled to be on. I can't thank you enough for allowing me to tell my story, talk about my ideas on how we can approach this problem. But you've helped me so many other ways, Elizabeth, and I'm so grateful to you and your family. And I just don't know. I wish there was a stronger word than thank you. I really do.
Well, we feel the same about you. And there are a lot of people in this community who really admire you. And, you know, you have an incredible story yourself, very successful business owner, but also in the police force for a long time. You have your own story. You're well connected in the community because people love you and they care about you. And this was even before the loss of your son, Nicholas. But, you know, certainly you're on a path here, Tommy, that we want to help with, which is to change the future for other families that may be facing what you went through. So I want to talk about Nicholas, and everyone can see below here, we've got the Nicholas Hudanish Foundation.org, and I'll leave that up there during the interview so people can go look at the site. But I want to bring Nicholas's picture up here, which is also on the website, one of many really cute pictures. He was obviously talented. I want you to take us back into what started to happen with Nicholas that really turned into something that eventually took over and took his life.
Well, the story starts off wonderfully. My son was an all-star football player. He had an IQ of 140. He excelled academically. He played 3 instruments, and college was going to be the next step to a phenomenal career. And he began studying in engineering, and he had a very good freshman year. He had a 4.0 grade point average and was moving forward in a tough curriculum. He played in a band that eventually played at the Stone Pony. He was a lead guitar player at the Stone Pony, and he was moving forward. Very proud of him. His sophomore year, he began experiencing anxiety, and there were several things. One, we couldn't identify where it initiated and why he was experiencing. He couldn't put his finger on anything. And I had no experience with any behavioral health issue.
Yeah.
And we felt it was best that since he was on campus, to utilize the psych services that are available to him as a student there. It would be very convenient. And Elizabeth, my sons, we were so close. He wanted me there. He wanted me in his sessions.
Yeah.
So we really felt confident that we were going to get to the bottom of it. And the sessions they initiated, and the psychiatrists, and there were several of them. They had a team approach, but they prescribed medications. And again, I wish I knew now. I wish I knew, now what I knew. Wish I knew then what I knew now, because Nicholas began to go on a carousel of medications, and he was on various things. Klonopin. I don't even recall the names. These were addictive drugs. These were class 4. These were serious things. Again, I had my trust in the doctors.
Yeah.
Nicholas didn't improve, but eventually he turned to heroin, and he wasn't introduced to heroin the way I was used to dealing with the heroin epidemic. As a police officer, I in an urban area, I am very familiar with heroin and the users, and dozens of arrests. Nicholas, and I didn't know any of this until the very end, because for 3 years, Nicholas maintained a 3.8 grade point average while using heroin. And at the end, he confided in me, and he told me that he was at a party. It was in the middle of his sophomore year, and someone at the party provided heroin in powder form. He snorted it, and he said he felt amazing. He said it just took care of his anxiety. It was the best thing, and he said he could handle it. Well, 2 years later, Nicholas was using heroin intravenously, probably about 15 bags a day. 6'2", 240 pounds, and you would have never thought. It wasn't the heroin user that I was accustomed to as a police officer. And his senior year, his grades fell, and I felt something was wrong. It was your parental instinct,
Yeah.
but again, he presented healthy, heavy. I've arrested heroin addicts. They weigh 120 pounds. And Nicholas was a solid 240. He hit it well. At the end, I really was able to put everything into place, and I understood how he did it. Smart boy. And I never saw him more than a day or two, because when you're maintaining a 3.8 grade point average, you're studying a lot, Dad.
Right.
And I can't stay over, and I can't. So I had the short glimpses, but then once the grades fell, I just said, I need you to be with me. I brought him into my home, and I was able to observe him for more than a couple days, and I was intrusive. I went through his room, mattress, drawers, and I found needles and heroin. And I'll never forget, I found it, and I called him on the cell phone, and I said, Nicholas, I need you to get home immediately. He knew. And he said, okay, Dad. And he came home, and I confronted him. And that's where I found out where heroin was initiated into his life, and how he coped for a year and a half. It's still amazing to me. It just shows you how bright this kid was to maintain that grade point average in engineering using heroin. And
Tommy, I got to interrupt you there
Sure.
because I think that's so important to reiterate is that what a heroin addict or any addict looks like is not necessarily what you would think. This isn't a movie, and in your case, actually, with your own occupation when you were in law enforcement, it's not what you were used to seeing. But I heard you say something really also very important, and as the listeners are hearing this, the trajectory of his addiction started with a mental health challenge. It started with anxiety. And we're not in this to blame doctors or whatever. I get that, but it did start with a prescription drug. And there are, Tommy, many college students or even high school students who are in mental health challenges, who feel the pressures, who are maybe taking Adderall or finding other street drugs to help them focus because they want to maintain, that which Nicholas did because they have that pressure for whatever reason. They're just needing that help. This is the slippery slope where it started. And as you look back, before we get to the rest of the story, as you look back on that initial challenge where he said, I'm feeling anxious, and you reached out to what is supposedly the support that you would have on campus, right there, that decision, what would you do differently today if you're talking to a parent whose son or daughter is overwhelmed, they're at college, maybe they're out of the house? What would you do differently?
Well, the first thing I would do is look at a more holistic approach. Um, I know you said we're not here to beat up doctors, and I'm not going to do that, Elizabeth,
Yeah, I understand.
because doctors, but I I think we have to trust and verify. And when we're and again, I'm a Monday morning quarterback. I didn't know this in 2016, but when we're told by the professional that they're going to put a drug into our body and it's going to do certain things, I think we have to ask a lot of questions. We have to ask,
Yeah.
is this short term or long term? With this particular drug, what are the dosages? Is this a lower dose or a higher dose? What is the frequency? What are the long and short term effects? What is the plan? Is this a drug that that we're going to utilize for weeks, months, or is it a lifetime? And I think now, with my experience, with my understanding of how behavioral health is the gateway, not necessarily other drugs, behavioral health issues is the gateway. And now with COVID and what's come out with trusting the science, we have to be diligent,
Yeah.
and we have to ask a lot of questions. And I think a holistic approach is always the best.
Yeah.
Always the best.
Definitely. There's so many other aspects of mental health that have to do with sleep and diet and who they're hanging around with, and what does their friend group look like? Is there too much pressure on them? So all these things come into play, and the choice, whether prescribed or whether a street drug, and you and I both know, especially college students have access to things like Adderall that help them focus. But the truth is, there's a price to pay. So Nicholas was looking to feel better. He was looking and seeking an alternative, a solution to helping him with his anxiety. And it's step by step by step by step. All of a sudden now we're back in his room when you discovered where he was now, which is the needles and the bags of heroin. At that point, what did you tell yourself?
I I said I am going to take on a battle that I probably wasn't going to win. And I know that sounds harsh, but we went forward with your traditional therapies, outpatient, and then detox, and then inpatient. But I didn't personally know anyone who beat a heroin addiction.
Yeah.
And when I arrested someone in the early 90s, we would take the heroin to the lab and it came back at 65% purity. And Nicholas was utilizing heroin at 99% purity with fentanyl.
My God.
So this was so powerful, but it was so frustrating because your entire life you're able to control and succeed based on the methods you utilize. But this was the most difficult thing because you couldn't move forward. You couldn't gain ground. As soon as he came out, he went back.
Right.
One of Nicholas's problems was he was bright, 140
Mm-hmm.
IQ, and he felt he knew better. And it's funny, before Nicholas and my other son Zachary went to college, I used to tease them, and I used to say, because they were two bright boys, Nicholas especially bright, and they'd tell you, oh, Dad, you can't do this, you got to do this. I'd say the only decision, um, the you have to be 20. The only decision you should be able to make until you're 25 years old is vanilla or chocolate. And they would get upset, but they knew I was laughing. But
right.
in that vein, Nicholas was smart and he knew better and he knew he could control it. He couldn't, but that's what he felt.
Yeah.
That's what he felt.
Yeah.
You know, you asked, what did I feel after his second attempt at sobriety and getting clean? I had a harsh talk with him. I vacillated. Sometimes you're the bad cop, sometimes you're the good cop. You just want to see progress, and you don't know what's going to get it out of him. And this is I still get upset with this. I was driving him to a job. I got him at a medical facility. I'm on the board of directors of an FQHC, and he was helping out. And he wasn't employable. I literally used my influence, got him a job, and then I stayed on top of him to do it. He was late once again, and I brought him in. And on our ride home, I told him, I could remember it like it was yesterday. I said, you better get it in gear because you're going to die. And I want to tell you what's going to happen, Nicholas. I said, you're going to die and I am going to be destroyed. I am not going to be able to function. My whole life is going to feel like it's over. And after about 6 months, I'm going to start moving forward. And after about a year, I'm going to get back in the swing of things. And after about 3 years, I'm going to possibly retrieve some joy out of life. And after about 5 years, I'm going to have to just visit you and think about you and have memories. But everybody else is going to go on. And you're going to be in the ground. I was harsh. It was a method that I thought might have an impact. Heroin addiction is it usually wins. It's tough, and I'm not sure. To this day, I know some people. I don't know how immersed heroin was in their lives, but they say, I've been clean 15 years, 20 years, but every day I struggle. So something happens. There's a chemical imbalance that you have to carry for the rest of your life. And it's the most, I don't know how people beat this, which is why I want to, I want to go another way.
Yeah. And, that's what we want to talk about here as, after we tell the rest of the story with Nicholas here. But I mean, the point is not to even go down this path.
Right.
And you paint a picture, which I think on the one hand, people, they hear it, they see it, but we need to keep saying it. We got to stop kids from even going down that path. And what what are the entry points? The entry points aren't just keep them from using once. It's way back in middle school, in grammar school.
Exactly.
It's a sense of confidence, a sense of self. It's understanding things in their life and dealing with them correctly so that they don't make choices to deal with pain, that, there are other options. It's understanding this at the point before addiction, or even in this case, heroin, which was several steps away from, the initial solution that the doctors had. So this is a lot of education, and we're going to talk about what you really believe passionately about that. But I want you to take us to, it's difficult, and all this is difficult. And every time I hear you tell this story, Tommy, I feel it at a cellular level, and I'm not even in the story. So it's hard to understand, but you need to keep telling it. And I want you to take us to November 2016.
Yes. I'll actually very briefly just go back to August.
Okay.
And it was August 8th. And after 2 rehab attempts that failed, I asked Nick's mom to take him in Point Pleasant. I needed to just gather things, regroup, and I wanted to make a robust effort before the holidays, but it was just so frustrating. I have so much guilt. So Nicholas lived with his mom, and she found him overdosed in the bedroom, turning blue. She called 911. They gave him Narcan. And to anyone who, I think Narcan people are familiar with it at this point, but it's an amazing drug. I've utilized it as a police officer. You literally shoot this drug into someone, Elizabeth, it is immediate.
Yeah.
They wake up. And I have to tell you, 9 times out of 10, they're ornery, they're abusive language. You took them out of their high. And Nicholas reacted that way. He was sent to the hospital, and his mom called me. I immediately got in my car. It was about a 50-minute drive. It was close to 1 a.m, and I sped down there, and I walked into the emergency room. And as soon as I walked in, I saw Nicholas lying in a bed, propped up, and it's so crazy, Elizabeth. The first thing I thought was, he was such a handsome boy. He was a handsome young man, and he was laying in there. And as I walked down the hall, he made eye contact with me, with his mother sitting to the left of him. And he utilized an obscenity, which he never did with me. He said, "What am I doing here?" And I was just overtaken with anger. He took me out of this beautiful picture I saw, and he just got me so frustrated, Elizabeth. I backhanded him. I assaulted him. I struck him. He fell to the side. He was bleeding. The nurses put some kind of alarm on. I created a huge commotion in the emergency room, and I just stopped, and I saw him laying there, and "What are you doing?" Yelling and screaming. I just turned around and I walked out slowly, and I sat on a bench that was outside the entrance to the emergency room. And as I sat there, I realized I just committed domestic violence. I'm sure the police will be coming. And I lost my son. And I can't tell you, for a guy who, I played college football. I was a police officer. I don't lose. I win. I help. I assist.
Right.
Everybody around me, I try to make better.
Yeah.
And I'm losing, and I'm going to lose big.
Yeah.
Sure enough, the police come up. They go in. I didn't even stop them. I knew they would be coming out soon. And about 15 minutes later, they came out. Are you Nicholas's dad? Yes. I didn't even tell him I was a cop. Um, they gave me the domestic violence language. And I said, I know, I struck him. They said, well, your son doesn't want to press charges, so you're free to leave. And I said, thank you. And I left. I called up his mom. We were able to get him on a plane the next day to Florida, which had a very impressive rehabilitation center for him. And he was there for 3 months. He wouldn't receive my call. He wouldn't respond to an email. And that day was the last day I saw Nicholas alive. He died on Thanksgiving Day, 2016. He got out of the program and went back to utilizing heroin. He had fentanyl in his heroin, and that was it. That was it. It was an ending. Very, very. I don't know why, but when I found that heroin in his room, I just knew that's how it would end.
You knew, as his dad, on a level you probably didn't even want to admit to yourself. You knew. And
Right?
that experience in the hospital of pure frustration of a parent who's trying to save his son. Why won't you listen to me? Why do you, you don't even need to say it. I think any parent listening right now just understands, after all that, what that is. And it's tough. And Tommy, I really believe you have to forgive yourself, because it was out of love. It really was. It was out of love. I mean, it was out of frustration and love and wanting to save him. And um, so, and ultimately, I believe you have said, and this isn't a show on fentanyl, but it needs to be said, what percentage fentanyl was in the heroin that he took?
I don't recall. I wasn't surprised, but I received the toxology afterwards, and I do remember his heroin was 99%, and I don't recall, but there was fentanyl in
There
there.
was fentanyl.
Yeah, and I I didn't tell you this. I never saw Nicholas again in the hospital, and that was the last time I saw him. But when we retrieved all of his property from Florida, he had a laptop, and Nicholas loved music, and Nicholas died with a guitar in his hand. He would play the guitar in front of his laptop, and you'd listen to his music. He wasn't a singer. He was more with the instrument, and it appeared he used heroin about 3 times. I went through the whole thing. I watched the whole thing. He came. He was a little high. You could tell he was playing the guitar. Then he put the guitar down. He went back, probably shot up again. Came back. He was even worse. Did it again, and the last time he was literally falling over, and he couldn't play. He did manage to shut the laptop off. As crazy as it sounds, my son died peacefully. When isn't it amazing how that's what you're grabbing
Yeah.
when you lose? You're grabbing at the manner of death, and he died. He was sitting on that bed. He died laying on that bed. The laptop was on, but not video next to him, and there were works in the bathroom, and about 8 bags. So it looks like he utilized those 8 bags in about three injections.
My
And
goodness.
I just I don't know.
Well,
I don't
Tommy,
know.
I know this is tough, and you tell the story, and I know it's hard for people to hear, and all the things that we say, but it's so important. It's
Yeah.
so important because you never thought this would be your life, and no one ever thinks their son, their daughter. But we have to, as a community, pull together and understand that we're all responsible for the path that we've set these kids on, because the medical community in this case was responsible for the beginning of this path, or the lack of help that was around you, or just not knowing, whatever it is. So I know that you have decided very, very strongly in your heart and in your head that you have to do something. You've created this foundation. And I want, again, to remind everybody, nicholashudanishfoundation.org. You can go to this site, learn more about Nicholas, learn more about what the foundation is trying to do. And I know you'll be adding to that site, but there is a donate button there. And you have to understand that what this foundation wants to do is stop this from happening by educating, right? By educating kids. I want you to talk about this curriculum, because Jersey First, one of the things that we do besides focusing on community is education. And education right now, there's a lot of noise about it, but we're losing focus a little bit on what's missing in education. What's missing is giving our kids the tools to keep them from going down this rabbit hole, frankly. So Tommy, can you talk a little bit about what you've discovered and why you think it's a good solution?
Yes, and thank you because this is important. Losing a child is not the natural order of things, and I after I was able to function, I needed to do two things. I wanted to make sure I could always help someone who had a family member or someone with an addiction problem, so they don't go through what I had to go through. And I needed to find something at the root of the problem. And when I began searching for different ideas, there are nonprofits for the addict. You know, the other victim of addiction is the family, right, of the addict. They go through an entire mental state, and there's behavioral health issues on that side.
Yeah.
There are nonprofits for that. And then I looked at Nicholas's treatments, and they're utilizing pharmaceuticals. They're not enough inpatient places, but I'm not sure if that's even the way to go at this point. So I said, I need to find a way where you never utilize the drug, because once that door is opened, I don't want to say it's impossible, because it's not, but your odds are dramatically reduced to have success. Yeah. And I'm a simple guy. I'm not that sophisticated, and I just try to think, if you want to hit a baseball, you got to swing the bat 100 times a day. Yeah. And if you want to know your multiplication times tables, you got to read the placards 100 times a day. So I needed to find something that was school age, and that was going to work. That's the other thing. Through the help of my relationships in Woodbridge Township, I identified a program. It's called the Botvin Life Skills Program. And what's great about this program is it's evidence-based. And evidence-based is a level of evaluation that provided anyone who took the life skills program 94% chance of not using an illegal drug. And that's all I needed to hear, because talking to the people over there, they said there aren't any other evidence-based programs like this.
Yeah.
And I did the research, and sure enough, I was sold that if as long as we don't open that door, we're going to beat this thing.
Yeah.
And it's a heavy duty curriculum. It's 45-minute curriculum. It's 13 weeks, and it's for middle school to freshman high school. And if you take this program, the entire curriculum, 94% chance, evidence-based science that you will not use illegal drugs. And the other thing I liked about it, my son died of an addiction and an overdose. That's only a part of the life skills program. It's life skills is exactly what it is. It talks about all these things that these boys and girls go through, which is the toughest part of your life. As you're transitioning from a boy and a girl to a young lady and a young man, the physical changes, the mental changes, and then it adds the other issues that come to the forefront, the social media, different things like that. So it talks about suicide, drug addiction, choices. It talks about how to identify what's happening to you when your body's changing, how to identify that you're feeling anxiety, and then what to do about it. Actually, a proactive approach, who to speak to, the options. Sometimes it's your mom and dad, sometimes it's a teacher, sometimes it's a neighbor, a cousin. But this life skills program, I am convinced it is the way to eradicate.
Stop it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And why do we want to? This is the part that's frustrating. Why do we want to help in manners that don't fix it? Why do we want to put Band-Aids on everything? You know, the doctors gave my son, someone who was addicted to heroin, they said, I didn't know it at the time, we're going to have you addicted to Klonopin so you don't use heroin. I know I don't have a doctorate, but it doesn't make sense, common sense. Yeah. And just the methods. I'm sorry, some of the methods are making some big corporations a lot of money.
That is not untrue. And I think in general, when you look at the medical community, there has definitely been a schism between those who are seeking the root cause of any kind of illness, whether it's mental or physical, versus the Band-Aid approach, as you say. And I even, we've got to go to the root. And ultimately, by being proactive at that age group, which is a critical age group, you hope to stop any root from forming that will ultimately end up hurting these kids. And I think back even, Tommy, to Just Say No from the Reagan era, and all that, Scared Straight, all the things that we were trying to do as a community. And I never, I always am happy that people are trying, but it's not just say no. I mean, Nicholas couldn't say no. He was way down that path. You're in a different situation then. We've got to back up. And so this age group is critical. And I believe that your focus on this is very timely, and that I think as a community, we understand more and more after COVID how critical middle school is up into the freshman year. It is the pivotal place. And I think that's where kids go one way or the other. So I know this is your focus, this curriculum. It's got incredible results. You've managed to get it into a few schools. I want you to tell people how you're doing that, and their support of your foundation can help get it in more schools.
Yes. I have been fortunate enough to get it into the Woodbridge Township school system. And I did that through advocacy, through my relationships in Woodbridge, to the superintendent, to selling him on this works, and you got to try it. And here's the evidence. And sure enough, they've put it in the school. I funded it through the generosity of all these wonderful people who have helped me through various events
Right.
and things like that. And these teachers go. It's like a health class. Woodbridge utilizes the curriculum during health class, so it's a full period, 13 weeks, and the teachers get a certification in it. It's a couple days, and they learn it. They get the manual, and then they teach the curriculum, their workbooks for each year. And Point Pleasant also had started it. I'm not sure if they're continuing. I think they've replaced it with a very similar program, which is so fine by me.
Yeah.
Because I just think we have to start putting the proper curriculum in schools.
Right.
And I'm talking to Old Bridge. They're all on board.
Great.
And with a little more money, I could go to the next school. But you know, Elizabeth, it's so difficult to break through to break through the state legislative body to push something forward. I get so frustrated at some of the curriculum out there. It's totally useless.
Right.
You know, I mean, I don't want to sound old fashioned, but no more home ec and geography. Kids don't know the capitals anymore.
You're not.
I don't understand.
Listen, Tommy, you're not old fashioned. We're at a crisis point with our education, right? We're not doing arithmetic, math, and basic things like, geometry, geography, geometry. I guess we do geography. I mean, but it's basic things that I think not only are in question, but we've spent a lot of effort. And again, this is not the show for this, but we spent a lot of effort and a lot of time at a legislative level, or I would say even at the Board of Education level, focused on a really crazy curriculum that's focus on things that shouldn't matter at that age. And you know what I'm talking about. And it's been sort of this rule of the minority where, this tiny percentage of kids that may identify a certain way. And then we have to change all the curriculum. Listen, kids are dying. This is very serious. The drug problem has gotten worse. Fentanyl is pouring over the border. The border is open. This isn't political. This is about saving people. No. Tommy, every day, as you well know, we have 300, I believe it is now, Americans dying every day from fentanyl. That is the equivalent of a major jet airliner crashing every single day. Do we address that, or do we just turn our head and accept it and worry whether or not a kindergartner knows what their pronoun is? It's time to grow up, everybody, and it's time to stop it. And I know that this will be with you until the day that you pass. I know that this is in your very being to make this change. And while I can say that I'm so proud of you, I wish that this never happened to you. I wish that you didn't. I wish we could take it from you, but here we are, and you're fighting for this. And there are others that need to hear about it. So can people reach out to you through the website to find out more about the curriculum for their school? Maybe there are people listening who have the ability to get into their school, or who can connect you, or just simply donate. Is that the best place for them to go?
Yes, it is. And we're, the website's up and running. There's a donation button there that some wonderful people have helped me with. And we're slowly adding more things to it. Good. But yes, the website talks about our mission, what we're doing, and where the money is going. And I plan on literally within the next couple of weeks putting the actual Botfin program on there. Good. And this will provide a venue for people to see. I want to say one other thing, Elizabeth. I promise you, every superintendent I have spoken to will put this on. I've talked to three. Old Bridge, I'm counting, I'm 3 for 3. And you can't say no to this because it works.
Right.
It's proof in the pudding. And I had an opportunity to go to county superintendents to do these pilot programs, but unfortunately, COVID put a stop to that.
Yeah.
And now we're starting up again. And I'm telling you, your advocacy with the Nader narrative, Bill Spadia, who was such a wonderful friend. I needed a voice when this occurred.
Yeah.
I literally drove to the station and said, I got to talk to him. Somebody got to help me. He just put his arms around me, and it's been amazing ever since, the advocacy. I'm so grateful. This is what we need. It works. And I'm not going to go there, but you know me, I can't help myself. Politicians on both sides of the aisle, you better start listening to parents. You better start listening to people, and you better understand what's on the agenda and what's a priority.
That's
because
right.
To this day, it hasn't been a priority. 117,000 lives last year in our country because of the federal government letting people over, and because of this country not implementing the proper curriculum, the proper methods to deal with it. So I won't say it anymore, but come on my website. Please donate a little something, read about it, and then start calling your legislators.
Exactly.
Tell them about it.
Right.
Push them. They work for us. And
right.
you can't go through this. I don't want a parent to go through this. No. It's horrific.
Of course you don't, Tommy. And so anyone listening, this is about protecting the next generation. We have a lot of work to do. If you know anyone on a board of education, a superintendent, if you're close with your legislative people at any level, even commissioners in the county, whatever advocate you can find who has the connections. Tommy's connected, but he needs help. So it's donate to the site. When you go to the site, it's donate, because this will help Tommy put the curriculum. It's not super expensive, but we need to put it everywhere. But also open doors and connections. And right now, somebody listening is feeling like, I got to do this. So call Tommy, go to the website, reach out, tell him you know someone who could hear about this. You're going to save a kid's life. And if it's just one kid, what if it's your kid? It's worth it. You have to keep doing this. Tommy, I just give you a big hug. You know how much I look up to you and appreciate you. And it's always tough to do this interview with you, but so very important. And we all love you. We thank you, and we're going to work on this together.
Elizabeth, my heartfelt thanks. You have been so wonderful in helping me to get this out there. I'm so grateful for your friendship. I love you, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Tommy. And to my audience, please don't skip checking out nicholashudanishfoundation.org. I'm sure we'll hear from Tommy again, and we'll see you all next week.